This is RocknR English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of RocknR English. Episode number 306, baby. I'm talking a little bit quiet because all of my family are sleeping. This is the real, true life of a podcaster. Anyway, in today's episode, I speak to Mental Marky Mark about, well, it's actually a bit difficult to give this episode a topic. It was supposed to be about success, but then we spoke a lot about penises and finished by speaking about putting the washing out. So basically, it's a typical episode of RocknR English. Now, in today's episode, in my opinion, Mental Marky Mark has a bit of a different voice. You will see why very early on in the episode. But if you have difficulty understanding Mental Marky Mark, remember to check out my new online course, Jungle Listening, the only course on the market that breaks down fast spoken English and transforms it into something simple and learnable, so that you will finally be able to watch films without subtitles and understand every word of RocknR English. Anyway, here is the episode. I will talk to you all again at the end. Happy listening. Mental Marky Mark, how are you today?
I'm very well, Martin. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
Great to have you, Mental Marky Mark. So much has happened in your life since the last time you were on the podcast, hey?
Yes, a lot has happened. And if you can see me on the video, you can tell by my eyes, my hair, probably my voice.
Yeah, you have got quite masculine voice for the first time, actually. So because for the last more than 20 years we have always said how feminine your voice is. Having two children has given you a sexy voice, Mental Marky Mark.
Well, thanks.
Husky, I think, is the word. A husky voice. I
don't know what to say. It might be related to me being dehydrated or something, or having a cold.
If you want a sexy voice, just don't drink water for a long time and you will be fine. Okay? So, on to today's pod. It's been a while, but do you remember how we start the pod?
Let's find out if there's been any top reviews.
Do you think there have been any?
No.
Actually, yes, this time. Okay.
Yes.
But so that was a good option. You choose the negative, so it's only good news after that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm all about.
Absolutely. So this is from Alejandro Suarez Rupa. Perfect pronunciation, I'm sure. Right. Facebook review, a brilliant review. It says, "This is the best podcast I've ever listened to in my entire life."
Wow.
You read this and you think, wow, but then you keep going and it says, and I've listened to 4. But still, the best of the 4 that you have listened to. So brilliant. And then it continues and says, "It is hopeful for humanity that people without talent at all have achieved this amazing podcast." So
I don't know how to read that review.
I see that as a massive compliment, okay? So Thank you for that, Alejandro. And yeah, basically, if I can make a podcast, anyone can, okay? Wow. So that's the way to take it. So on to today's pod. So you have made let's say you have had some big achievements since we last spoke. So I thought we could just talk a little bit about this, about your marathon run as well, because you ran a marathon.
I did.
But before we get that, obviously, a new mini Mental Marky Mark, baby number 2, has arrived. No? Another girl?
Yes, another little girl. Baby Mental Marky Mark number 2 is here. 3 months in, actually.
3 months in, right.
In the thick of it, as we like to say.
Absolutely, yeah. The eye of the storm, someone said to me, which I quite liked.
Yeah. It's very accurate. Yeah.
The worst time to record a podcast, basically.
That's great.
So, yeah, obviously another girl. I have a boy. I have decided that girls are better because you don't have to have anything to do with penises, because those things are absolute nightmares, believe me.
I imagine they are. As soon as you open that nappy, you don't know where it's pointing.
Exactly. All problems in the world come from penises, I've decided. Plus, as well, I still feel a bit strange when I'm like cleaning him, because before this, the only penis I'd ever touched was mine. It was kind of a rule of mine. Just touch your penis, Martin, nobody else's. And now I'm touching someone else's, and it's a strange thing, yeah.
Well, surely you kind of felt the same about your daughter, because,
But the penises are just so much more aggressive.
We were, in fact, on a recent holiday, we were talking about this.
About penises.
Because one of our friends' small childs had morning glory, if you like. I mean, like, it's called, I don't know if it's tubescence or tumescence. You need to Google it.
Right, I'm going to not Google anything about babies' erections, okay? I don't want to go to prison, okay?
It's not about...
Someone is going to watch me and I'm going to get into trouble. So I think this is a very good time to move on with the podcast, Mental Marky Mark. What about you?
Okay, tumescent, swollen or becoming swollen, especially as a response to sexual arousal. But it's not about sexual arousal.
Moving on with the podcast. Thank you very much. On to the marathon run. Okay, because Mental Marky Mark ran the London Marathon, and not only that, just after baby Mental Marky Mark number 2 had arrived.
Yeah, I mean, I think she was 2 weeks old, but by that time, as your running listeners will be aware, you're on the downward trend of training anyway. You're on the your big training runs have been completed. You only have to run 2 or 3 miles in the weeks leading up to it. So actually, the training burden wasn't there, and you're just resting before the marathon anyway. But the day I did check into a hotel in London so I could have a good night's sleep before the race. That bit is a bit controversial, but I needed my rest, my sleep before I ran.
Absolutely. And you also got a really good time, didn't you?
It was good. Yeah, I was happy with it.
What was it again?
3 hours 42.
Yeah, I know nothing about running, but I know that everyone was saying, blimey, Mental Marky Mark ran in that time. I thought, he's done something here. He didn't actually do that. He's fiddled with it. There's something going on here.
Well, funnily enough, I overdid it in the first half of the marathon. And you're supposed to run a very steady pace so you save your energy. But I was a bit too fast. So by, I think, mile 20, so the last 6 odd miles, I hit a big wall. So I was a little bit slower than I'd wanted to be for the last few miles. But
you went through the wall. So here are some things that I thought we could talk about. Just the marathon, going through that wall and the thing. So what were you saying to yourself? Were you motivating yourself, saying, come on, Mental Marky Mark, you can do this?
Yeah, a little bit. Your body's...
Or were you thinking about, children's erections?
No, I was definitely not thinking about children's erections, but someone who would be thinking about children's erections is R. Kelly. Because the R. Kelly's song, it's when you're running a marathon, it's like the opposite. Your body's telling you no, but my mind's telling me yes. It's the opposite of his song.
When you just came out with R. Kelly, who, for people that don't know, let's say he was a big R&B star in the 90s until he got arrested for
sex with minors, I think.
Yeah, exactly. For touching children's erections. I really did think, where is the connection going to come here? Why has he just started talking about R. Kelly from nowhere? But you really did make an unbelievable connection there with his song. Your mind's telling you no, or your body's telling you no, whatever it is. Your version was much better.
Great. But you can see how tired I am because I'm talking nonsense.
Still from the marathon?
Yeah, no, not from the marathon, just from the last few weeks. I was tired for a good week after the marathon, and I've not really done much physical activity since. I've eaten what I want, drunk what I want, and I've lost all the gains.
Right. Okay. And did you have many fans there, like with like banners? Because I was going to come and watch, but then I thought, nah, a bit.
Yeah.
But I must admit,
thanks for your support, mate. Yeah.
I had so baby RnR was only 2 months old, I think then, and so the idea of going to London to see you in a marathon where I probably would see you for like 10 seconds of the 4-hour run. I thought,
and it's not as if I'd be saying, hi, mate. I'd just be looking at you going, barely recognising you.
So, how is that? So did people come to cheer you on? Are you allowed to talk to them?
They did, actually. And it do you know what? I described running the marathon, a big marathon like London, as the only time in your life for a regular average person like me to feel like you're a professional athlete. You know, it's the only time a normal person can get cheered on by thousands of people running or doing something.
Interesting.
So that was a great feeling. And then when you do spot some friends or family in the crowd, it gives you a massive lift. It's huge, especially when you're hitting the wall. Seeing these people is great.
How you described that reminded me of one of my friends when he was talking about getting married. This wasn't much before I got married, and he was already married at this point. And he said to me, look, basically when you get married, you just have to pretend you're famous for the day, because you end up spending stupid amount of money on things that you would never do. And I remember, for example, when you obviously got the car, like to take like you to the church or whatever, and we paid like €400, and he was for about 20 minutes.
It's so true.
It's exactly that. You just have to pretend you're famous. So you were pretending you're like a, star athlete.
Yeah, I mean there were much older people. And people in fancy dress overtaking me, so it wasn't a realistic
the fancy
dress
thing.
Think I was famous.
I've never understood that. So fancy dress obviously meaning like a costume of some sort. Like you're running, you're thinking you're doing well, and then you've got someone dressed as a giant penis just running straight past you.
Exactly. Or someone carrying a fridge on their back who's actually running faster than you. When you start getting overtaken by people wearing fancy dress, a banana running past you, that's when you're not a professional athlete.
But like I said, fair play to you. Boom Boom Cannon a few years ago nominated me for some charity thing. I had to run 5 kilometers, and I didn't know if I was going to manage it.
Well, but Boom Boom, did he talk about his? He did a half marathon recently,
did he?
I think.
No,
he did. He did.
He was on quite recently. He didn't mention it. Is that what you and Boom Boom talk about now? Like marathon? It's like when you have kids. Like immediately, if someone else has kids, you think, I've got something else to talk about that's not football.
Yeah.
So, do you talk about running now?
Yes. For the months afterwards, people bring up that you ran the marathon. You have to tell them your time. They want to know your time, even if they don't know what the time means.
That's the same. That's the same as me. Oh, what? That's exactly what I do. Oh, what time did you get? Oh, I don't know. And you tell me this. Right. Okay. It's like when I speak to someone, like not from England, and they say, even from like a European country, they say, I'm from Germany, and I say, oh, where? And I think basically if it's not Berlin, like Munich or another city that's got a football team.
I met a lady the other day from Colombia, And
Whereabouts in Colombia?
all I said was, Bogota? And they were like, no, a few hours south. They were like, okay, well, I know the capital.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. It's just one of those automatic questions. It's like when I was living abroad and then came home, first question, when did you get here? And he said, oh, like a couple of days ago. Oh, right. How long are you staying for? Automatic, 2 questions every single time I came home for every single person I ever spoke to.
It's the same as getting into a taxi. And you have a series of questions that I think not just as a British person, but anybody worldwide has a series of questions that you must ask the taxi driver. Have you been busy? What time are you on to?
What time are you on
to?
Do you
knock it off? Yeah.
And then because they're taxi drivers, obviously they finish at like 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff like this, and you have to pretend you're surprised. Yeah. They say 3 o'clock. Oh, bloody hell!
And then you hit them with the other question, like, "Oh, so will you do any airport runs?" Well, that's what I do because I think people go into the airport early.
You really are a conversationalist, aren't you? Do you have to go to the airport?
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the running, to be honest, I don't even know what the subject of this podcast is. Sometimes, most of the time, I at least like to have a topic, but we're so far away from any topic. But okay, I do have some other questions here. Okay, did you read any books about this? Did you we were talking about motivation, like any of those motivation books to say like, yeah, I can do this. Do you like those books?
Do you know what? I do like those books, and there's a lot of them out there at the moment, I think. And in fact, Bonnie, for my birthday, Mrs.
Mental Marky
Mark, got me a running book, but it was so close to the marathon, I still haven't opened it. But that wasn't a motivational one. It was more like a training plan from an experienced runner. I followed a training plan, but no, it had a good playlist. That was my biggest sort of motivation. Just some great songs coming on at particular times.
I didn't think about that, obviously. So, of course, you want to load yourself up with songs, don't you?
Yeah.
What I find with running with songs, I remember specifically running once in London. I've never been much of a runner, but I felt the need to go for a run this day and had like headphones on, like full whack, and running along, and like a real powerful song came on, and I just started sprinting, obviously in London, and ran across the road and very nearly got killed by a double-decker red bus.
Yeah, be careful with headphones in.
Yeah, that's
in cities.
That's what running with music can do to you, because you can't stop yourself, can you? Once you get that song, Eye of the Tiger. What are you going to do? Just
you're running. Tunnel vision.
Absolutely. Just going to stand around? Absolutely no. So one of the things that I was supposed to talk about was success, okay? Because you're a successful man now, Mental Marky Mark. Married, 2 children, good job, and ran a marathon, okay?
Wow.
You're the person we all want to follow. So they say when you have like success, you need to think of the small successes in life, okay? So what small successes have you had today? Now, I'll start with this because it's a bit of a difficult question. For me these days, honestly, this may be the same for you, having a shower is a success, because with children, sometimes honestly, I have to think, how much time have I got? I'm going to have to lose something here. Like, I'm going to have to lose either not eating breakfast or washing, and it's very often that.
So, small successes for me today, people kind of think we're so boring, but was this morning getting out the door, because it was a
just that's it.
Well, my eldest had to go to school for familiarization day, so she could experience her new school that she starts for the first day for like a morning. But I made pancakes for breakfast because I thought it's a big day. You're going to school.
You actually made them?
Made them, batter and everything.
God, what a dad you are.
All dressed and did her hair. She never lets me do her hair, so we're all dressed.
Oh, you did her hair? Honestly, when I tried to do my daughter's hair,
yeah,
it's an absolute nightmare.
I think we're turning the corner because it is a nightmare. Don't let them touch your hair.
I've got the feeling that when you were a child, you loved playing with Barbies with your sisters anyway, and you were doing hair. So you've got 2 sisters.
We always circle back to this on this podcast. It always circles back to me being feminine, playing with Barbies, listening to girly music, or dancing.
all of which are true.
All of which is not true.
I just want to underline.
Well, that links into the other thing I got done. I put the washing machine on a timer last night. This is how I told you people find it boring. So the cycle finished at 7 a.m. because the glorious day. So I checked the weather so I could hang it up straight away and still get to school in time. There you go. There's my success.
Wow. Now that is rock and roll. Putting the washing machine on a timer for 7 a.m. and then hanging the washing out. My God. Now, if that's not rock and roll, what the hell is?
That's why the podcast is called Rock and Roll English.
Absolutely.
Can you relate to that? Do you feel like they're decent
100%.
goals like that?
Unfortunately, yes. I would love to still be in the phase where I laugh at you for being an idiot and taking the piss out of you. But unfortunately, I do think, God, that's a really good idea. That's brilliant. It's been a pleasure talking to you about success, mental marky mark.
Great.
And you just keep going. Okay, keep going.
Hopefully I can report some more successes to you soon.
Right, I don't think you're going to get any more successful than the washing machine at 7 o'clock, so forget it.
I want to hear about your listeners' daily successes. I'm sure you do that.
Exactly. Please tell us. But so thanks a lot, Mental Marky Mark, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So there we have the conversation about not a lot, really. Remember, if you had any difficulty understanding, check out my new online course, Jungle Listening. The link to the course is in the podcast you are listening to. So let's have a look at some of the vocab. We mentioned Mental Marky Mark had a husky voice. A little bit like I've got now. Husky, a bit like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I can't remember his name. Husky, also associated with being sexy. Then Mental Marky Mark said that his young daughter was 3 months old, so he was in the thick of it, like the real difficult period. And I used another term and said in the eye of the storm, the real middle part of the difficulty. I mentioned that Mental Marky Mark had fiddled with his time at the marathon. So if you fiddle with something, you, let's say, play with it. And in this sense, play with it and change the time, because the time he gave to us was so fast. I thought, did he really do that? But I have had it confirmed by the London Marathon, so he did. Anyway, he also mentioned he hit a wall for the last few miles. When you hit a wall, it's like you can't move, you're blocked, but you have to find a way. I asked him if people cheered him on. If you cheer someone on, you say, "Come on, Mental Marky Mark, you can do this." He spoke about people in fancy dress. So we spoke about that. People that are dressed up as a penis or a banana are wearing fancy dress, or they are in fancy dress. We spoke about a series of questions, a nice term there, like a list of questions you ask a taxi driver. For example, what time are you on till? What time do you finish work? And another one, what time are you knocking off? The same. What time do you finish work? Mental Marky Mark said when you are running, you have tunnel vision, so you only see one thing, and that's the finish line. And then he mentioned how we always circle back to the fact that he played with Barbies and, let's say, was a little bit feminine when we were younger, but as I said, he did play with Barbies, so, it's okay. Anyway, that is everything from this week's podcast. Remember to check out all the vocabulary on the show notes. So go to rockandrollenglish.com, click podcast episodes, and you will find it all there. Thanks for listening. I will see you all in a couple of weeks, maybe next week. I will see Rock and Roll English family members tomorrow. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.